Ejiro, without this subcontract, Balogun construction dies. Please. Hundreds of workers will lose their jobs.
Funny. When I lost everything, nobody did for me. She knows. I knew from the beginning. The question is not whether I can save you. The question is, why should I?
Ejiro built a pitch deck that won the Balogun family their biggest government contract in 20 years. She stayed up 11 nights straight. She used her own savings to fly the site engineers to Abuja. She sat in every meeting, silent, in the back row, while Tonji Balogun stood up front and took every question, because his mother said a fiancé's name doesn't belong on a company document. 3 weeks after the contract was signed, they accused her of leaking it to a rival bidder. And by the time the truth came out, Ejiro had already lost her job, her name, and the man she thought loved her. This is the story of how a woman with nothing built an empire out of the very industry that tried to erase her, and how, 5 years later, the Balogun family came back begging for a contract only she could sign. If you believe hard work eventually gets its reward, hit subscribe right now, because what Ejiro does by the end of this video is going to make your whole day. Ejiro grew up watching her father lose 2 businesses to bad partners who took credit for his ideas. Never build something you can't put your name on, Baba Ejiro used to tell her. She promised herself she never would. She met Tonji Balogun at a business mixer in Abuja, 3 years into running her own small logistics consulting firm, nothing grand, just her, one laptop, and a stubborn refusal to give up. Tonji was warm, sharp, and unlike his family's cold reputation. Within a year, they were engaged. It was Tonji who brought her into Balogun construction and logistics as an unofficial strategist when the company chased the biggest government infrastructure contract in company history. Ejiro built the entire winning proposal from scratch, the numbers, the timeline, the community engagement plan that made the difference. You should be in that boardroom with your name on this, Tonji told her the night before the final pitch. Your mother would never allow it, Ejiro said, folding the documents closed. Let's just win the contract first. They won it. 240 million naira, the single largest infrastructure deal Balogun construction had ever landed. Ejiro's name appeared nowhere on it. At the celebration dinner, Otumba Yewanda Balogun raised her glass to her son without once looking at the woman beside him. To the Balogun name, finally where it belongs. Similoluwa Adeyonju, daughter of an old family friend and the woman Yewanda had wanted for her son since childhood, smiled from across the table. Tonji, your mother tells me you're the mastermind behind the whole bid. Tonji glanced at Ejiro. She said nothing. She had learned, over the past year, when silence was safer than the truth. Why do you let them talk like you did it alone? Ejiro asked Tonji later that night. Ejiro, please. Not tonight. I gave up my own clients for this contract, Tonji. I put my own money into the flights, the site visits, all of it. And your mother introduces me like a guest at my own engagement dinner. I know, Tonji said quietly. I'll fix it. Just give me time. But Otumba Yewanda had already made her decision about Ejiro long before that dinner. That girl is a market trader's daughter, she told her husband, Chief Balogun. She has no family name to protect this company. The moment something goes wrong, she'll run and take our reputation with her. She built a bid that saved this company, Yewanda. And that, Yewanda said coldly, is exactly the problem. She knows too much. Simi found her opportunity 3 weeks later, when a rival construction firm suddenly produced internal Balogun bid documents, numbers, timelines, community engagement strategy, all identical to what had won the government contract. Someone leaked our entire proposal, Chief Balogun said, ashen-faced, in an emergency board meeting. Word for word. All eyes in the room turned, slowly, toward the one person in the building who wasn't family, wasn't bored, and had access to every page of that document. Ejiro. I would never do that, she said, standing. I built that plan. Why would I hand it to a competitor? Because you were never given proper credit for it, Yewanda said smoothly, and everyone in this room knows resentment makes people do foolish things. Tonji's phone buzzed. A message from an anonymous number, with a screenshot of an email sent from an address disguised to look like Ejiro's, attaching the confidential bid file to the rival firm. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he looked up at her, and Ejiro watched something in his eyes close like a door. "Tonji," she said. "You know me?" He didn't answer. The board voted that night to terminate every association with Ejiro, freeze the small consulting fee she was owed, and file a formal complaint that would blacklist her name across the entire construction and logistics industry in the capital. "If you don't fight this, no one will ever hire me again," Ejiro told Tonji, standing outside the Balogun estate gates with her bag already packed. "I need time to think," Tonji said, not meeting her eyes. "You've had 3 weeks to think, Tonji. This is the moment you either believe me or you don't." He said nothing. The gates closed behind her that night, and the engagement ended without either of them saying the words out loud. Within a month, every phone call Ejiro made to old clients ended the same way: polite regret, sudden unavailability, doors closing one after another. The industry was small, and the Balogun name was large. Nobody wanted to be caught defending a woman accused of corporate espionage, whether it was true or not. She sat in her empty one-room office in Woods, the rent notice from her landlord sitting unopened on the desk, and for the first time in years, she didn't know what came next. Her father found her there. "Ejiro. What happened to you?" "They destroyed everything I built, Papa. And the man I was going to marry stood there and let them." Baba Ejiro sat beside her in silence for a long time. Then he said the only thing he knew to say. "Then build something they can't touch." Osoritin had been the site engineer. Ejiro personally flew out to Abuja during the original bid, the one person in the whole process who had seen, firsthand, exactly how much of the winning plan had come from her mind and no one else's. "I never believed the leak story," he told her, showing up at her door 2 months after she left the Balogun estate. "I know your work. I know it wasn't you. Let me help you start again." With almost nothing left, a laptop, one loyal engineer, and a father who believed in her, Ejiro registered a small logistics consulting company under her own name for the first time in her life. No fiancé's family name attached to it. No one to share credit with, and no one to blame her for anything either. The first 2 years were brutal. Small contracts, government agencies that hesitated the moment they recognized her name from the industry rumor mill, nights spent redoing proposals from scratch because a client dropped out at the last minute out of caution. If you've ever had to start completely from zero after someone took credit for your work, drop a comment below and let us know how you're doing today. This story is for you. But slowly, one honest contract at a time, Ejiro built a reputation nobody could take away, because this time, every single document had her name on it, and every result could be traced back to her work alone. By year 3, she had outgrown the one-room office in Woods. By year 4, her company was quietly becoming one of the most trusted infrastructure consulting firms in the capital, smaller than Balogun Construction, but faster, cleaner, and impossible to catch in a single mistake. 5 years after the night the gates closed behind her, the federal government opened bidding for a new infrastructure expansion, the second phase of the very project Ejiro had designed from scratch. Balogun Construction, weakened by 2 failed projects and a reputation quietly damaged by whispers of the leak scandal that never fully died down, needed this contract to survive. Ejiro's company submitted a bid of its own. Chief Balogun recognized the name on the opposing bid the moment it landed on his desk. Yewanda. You need to see this. Otomba Yewanda stared at the cover page for a long time. This is impossible. She had nothing left. She has 5 years of contract and a reputation stronger than ours right now, Chief Balogun said grimly. The evaluation committee already prefers her proposal. Tonji, who had spent 5 years half-heartedly running the family's shrinking logistics division, walked into his mother's office holding the same bid document, his hands unsteady. Mom. I need to ask you something, and I need the truth this time. Tonji. The email. The one that supposedly came from Ejiro's account, sending our bid documents to the rival firm. Who actually sent it? Yewanda's silence answered the question before her words did. It was necessary, she finally said. Simi's family needed a way to be brought closer to this business, and Ejiro was never going to give up her name to us. I made sure she never had the chance. You destroyed an innocent woman's entire career to make room for someone you preferred, Tonji said quietly. And I let you, because I was too weak to ask the one question that mattered. The evaluation board scheduled a joint session for both bidding companies to present final clarifications before the contract award. Ejiro walked into the same conference room she had once sat silently in the back of, 5 years earlier, except this time, her name was on the folder, on the proposal, and on the company badge at the door. Tonji was already there when she arrived. Ejiro. Mr. Balogun, she said evenly, taking her seat at the head of her own delegation. I know the truth now, he said, before the meeting began. About the email. About Simi. About my mother. That took you 5 years, Ejiro said. I know. And I know there's nothing I can say that fixes what you lost. No, she agreed. There isn't. The committee awarded the contract to Ejiro's company 2 weeks later, a unanimous decision, citing the strength, transparency, and clean 5-year track record of her company against Balogun Construction's damage history. Without the contract, Balogun Construction's largest ongoing project could not proceed. Chief Balogun requested an emergency meeting, not to compete, but to ask Ejiro's company to subcontract the very division Tonji ran, simply to keep hundreds of construction workers employed. Ejiro sat across the table from the family that once erased her, now asking for a place inside the company she alone had built. You once told a room full of people I couldn't be trusted with my own work, Ejiro said to Yowanda, who sat silent and stiff beside her husband. Now you're asking me to decide whether your family keeps its business. Ejiro didn't destroy the Balogun family the way they had tried to destroy her. She didn't need to. She simply approved the subcontract on strict terms, full transparency, every document signed and traceable, every worker's job protected regardless of what happened between the families involved. I'm not doing this for you, she told Tonji, the day the papers were signed. I'm doing it for the 200 workers who had nothing to do with what your mother did to me. I understand, Tonji said. I don't expect anything else from you. Otomba Yowanda, for the first time in 5 years, said the words she had never once offered. I was wrong about you. I destroyed something real to protect something that was never worth protecting. I'm sorry, Ejiro. Ejiro studied her for a long moment. I don't need your apology to keep building what I built. But I accept it, for what it's worth. Baba Ejiro stood at the back of the boardroom that day, watching his daughter run a meeting that decided the fate of the very family who once tried to erase her name from her own work. You built something they couldn't touch, he said afterward, echoing the words he'd given her 5 years earlier in that empty one-room office. I built something with my name on it, Ejiro said. That was always the whole point. Osaritin, now her chief operations director, raised a glass at the small celebration that evening, no grand engagement dinner, no borrowed family name, just the small team that had believed in her when no one else would. To Ejiro's company, he said. 5 years, one name, 0 shortcuts. To starting from zero, Ejiro said, and never needing anyone's permission to rise. If this story reminded you that your name deserves to be on your own work, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one, a story about a woman whose in-laws tried to bury her business, and the one clause in a will they forgot to read twice. And before you go, tell us in the comments, should Ejiro have let the Balogun family fall completely, or was mercy the stronger move?